Welcome back to another week of Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with the movers, the shakers, those film and TV makers, the producers, the directors, the writers, the actors, the cinematographers, production designers, film editors, sound mixers, composers, songwriters, singers. As a matter of fact, we're going to have a singer/director back with us in a couple weeks. You name it. We talk to them all. And we've been doing a lot of talking. As you know, I wasn't here last week because I was screening films last Monday, 3 films, and then a 4th one at night in order to do interviews the next morning. So you got to hear my interviews last week with director Scott Waugh, my dear Scotty Waugh, talking Expendables 4, as well as Robert Rodriguez talking the new Spy Kids Armageddon. I hope you guys have checked out both films. If you haven't, please do it. Expendables 4 is in theaters, and Spy Kids Armageddon is on Netflix right now. Both are fun. Tons of fun. As I've repeatedly said about Expendables 4, it's rock 'em, shock 'em, blow 'em all to hell. It is explosive, and I love it. And I love seeing old guys still taking names and kicking butt. So check them out, people. You won't be disappointed. And you're not going to be disappointed with our guests we've got coming up today, one of whom is on hold right now. Today is all about education. Yes, indeed. We're going to be talking with Andy Palmer here in a minute, director of The Re-Education of Molly Singer. It is a light, sweet, charming comedy starring one of my favorites, Britt Robertson. And he's all grown up now, people. All you Marvel fans are going to know this guy automatically. He played Harley in Iron Man 3 and has been a presence at every Marvel premiere, every Avengers film. Ty Simpkins co-stars in The Re-Education of Molly Singer. So I can't wait to talk to Andy. And then later on in the show, we've got director TRACY DROZ TRAGOS joining us about her new documentary, Plan C, all about the abortion pill controversy and the underground network, or maybe quasi-underground network of dispensing pills to states that have outlawed abortion. So that should be an interesting conversation. It's an interesting film, interesting documentary. But first, let's start off with some educating fun. And welcome, Andy Palmer. Hey, Andy.
Hello.
Hello yourself. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I am so excited to have you joining the show today. I can't tell you.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. It's Monday. It's a beautiful cloudy day here in Portland. We hardly get any of those, you know?
Sure. I know all about that Portland weather.
Usually it's desert-like heat conditions here.
But, we're kicking off October, a new month.
We are.
The last quarter of the year. And what a way to start it off than with The Re-Education of Molly Singer. This movie is so much fun, Andy.
Thank you so much.
I am utterly charmed by it. It's light comedy, it's sweet, it's funny, and I just think it is absolutely charming. Absolutely charming.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you dug it. Yeah, we loved making it, and I got to see it this weekend for the first time with an audience. I actually went to Peoria, Illinois, with Zach Shear, who played Stu. His hometown press got wind of it, and they rolled out the red carpet, and we had like 200 people in the theater watching it on Friday night, and Zach and his whole family. I mean, it was awesome.
Well, this film, it covers multiple generations. It's a trip down memory lane for some people. It's a cringeworthy trip for others.
Yeah.
But, your cast is great. You got Britt Robertson, and I will see Britt in anything. I mean,
Me too.
Most people, they know her best possibly for Tomorrowland, The Space Between Us, The Longest Ride, or even an absolutely wonderful drama, Mr. Church, in which she co-starred with Eddie Murphy. Then we've got...
It's so versatile.
I know. And she has this great presence about her. I've interviewed her, done one-on-ones with her for The Longest Ride and for Tomorrowland. And she is just fabulous. And she is whip smart, too. Yes.
Well, that was where I first, I first saw her was, I'd seen her in some TV stuff, but at Tomorrowland, I just remember being like, oh my gosh, this woman is just like, she is going toe-to-toe with George Clooney.
Yep.
And she is, on an acting level, beating him in these scenes. I mean, it was just like, I just thought she was a star.
Yes.
And so she was one of the first people we sent the script to. Brett, I think the second human we sent the script to when we were going out to folks.
But, on top of Britt, you've got Wendy Malick shows up, who is, of course, she's only in a couple scenes, but she's hilarious, as always, as only Wendy Malick can be. Making an appearance for all you little cinephile trivia nerds out there, Jonathan Lipnicki.
That's right. That's right. We have a great Lipnicki cameo.
Yes, you do.
In the movie, and he was awesome.
Yes, he was. And, of course, Jamie Presley can do no wrong. And she's fabulous. Nico Santos just steals the show every scene he's in. But the real standout, everybody knows him. All the Marvel fans know him as Harley. Appeared in Iron Man 3. And he became a fixture. I was telling my engineer, Pam, he became a fixture on all the Marvel film red carpets for premieres. And then he appeared again in Avengers Endgame. Ty Simpkins is now all grown up. You also know him from Jurassic World, the whole reboot of the Jurassic franchise, as the younger brother. And then, of course, for all the horror fans out there, he's done Insidious Chapter 2, Insidious the Last Key, Insidious the Red Door. And now he plays a college freshman. I feel really old, Andy.
Dude, I'm telling you, right? You're just like, that person is this person? Okay, wow. When did that happen?
And then
didn't Insidious come out yesterday? I mean, it's crazy, right?
And then we see I see Jonathan Lipnicki pop up in his cameo, and I'm like, okay, now just shoot me. Just shoot me. For folks, if you haven't, Jerry Maguire, he's the kid who knows that a human head weighs 8 pounds.
That's right. I think there's even an outtake. There's an outtake that may exist. I don't know, where when Stu's character pops the mascot helmet off of Lipnicki, he goes, "Man, this thing weighs like 10 pounds."
But just the cast is just wonderful and put together so well. They mesh so well. Briefly, tell the listeners what the crux, what the story is that we get to watch unfold here with the re-education of Molly Singer.
Absolutely. Well, Molly is a young attorney who feels like the best years of her life were spent in college, partying and being carefree. So she tries to recreate that every night after work. And the night before her biggest case of her career, she recreates it a little too much. And she ends up sleeping through her alarm, thus missing the court appearance and almost getting fired. But in a twist of fate that only celluloid can deliver, her boss's son ends up going to the same college that Molly went to, and he becomes the campus pariah on the first day by injuring the star football player. So Brenda tasks Molly with going undercover back at her alma mater to watch over her son and kind of take him from campus zero to hero.
And, of course, helping Molly, who is, of course, played by Britt Robertson, is Molly's best friend, Ollie.
That's right. That's right.
Who is played by Nico Santos, who he just makes me laugh. no matter
he's
what.
Hysterical. Yeah.
I mean, he had a small part in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as Recorder Theo. He was in Crazy Rich Asians. I loved him in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 just because of the looks he gets on his face. And we see so much of that here in the life that he brings into Ollie. But the premise is great. The premise is great. Written by Todd Freeman, who's also one of the producers on the film, and Kevin Haskin. How did this land in your lap?
So I was editing a film for Todd another film he had written and produced called Collection, and it was like a thriller movie. But we really hit it off during post on that movie. We worked together in the edit room a lot with Mariana Polka, the director, and so Todd had asked me. He knew that I had done film, and then one of the other producers, Warner Davis, is my producing partner. We've done almost everything together. And so Todd asked me one night, he's like, "Oh, what do you want to do next?" And I had been doing a lot of like horror films and horror comedies and stuff. And I think he expected me to say like a horror film. And I said, "No, I want to do like a really fun, like throwback, like a weird science sort of type of 80s comedy." And he goes, "Oh, I have that movie." So, and then he sent me the script and it had actually been written years earlier. Him and Kevin had written it years earlier, and it was called The Re-Education of David Singer. So it was male driven. The premise was exactly the same, but it felt very sort of 90s American Pie. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, we've never seen like a female Van Wilder, that sort of queen of the campus. And I was like, let's flip this and make it a female. Let's just see what that dynamic does and see if that changes relationships between her and Elliot. And we kind of, the best friend was sort of more of the Stifler best friend. And I was like, what if he's more of like the snarky, funny, like this sort of like ride or die that every girl would want to have her best friend be? And then I was like, it's like a Nico Santos type. And then it ended up, because I love Nico Santos' relationship, and I can't remember her name, but the woman that he works kind of closest with on Superstore, I thought they were so funny together. And and that's how it sort of snowballed. And I was lucky enough to be able to be put on board.
Wow. Well, as I'm watching the film, I kept thinking this had so many great elements of a film like Never Been Kissed with Drew Barrymore, Van Wilder, of course, and a film that just came out last year or the year before, within the past 24 months, Butter. I saw pieces from each of those coming together here, especially with the themes that this film tackles. Because while it's light comedy and it is so sweet and charming and fun, there's a lot happening here emotionally and themes talking about bullying and friendship. And, of course, finding yourself, finding your own identity, who you are. And can you even do that in college, or does it take a few more years out in the world? So you really, and you bring it all together so beautifully, and you keep the film light and bright, visually and tonally. And this is where I have to commend you and your cinematographer, Philippe Vanderwall, who you've worked with before.
I have,
So talk to me about your discussions with Philippe and coming up with the visual grammar and the visual tonal bandwidth that really carries this, buoys this film and makes it shine.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that because, and Philippe is, he's one of my best friends and we work so well together. But that is exactly what we wanted to come off. We were tackling a lot of like, sort of deep themes and stuff like that. But I wanted to keep this like a really fun, poppy throwback, sort of comedy. One of my favorites from like, I think late 90s, early 2000s was 10 Things I Hate About You. Mm-hmm. I love the palette of that movie. I love the look of it. I love the style of it. So we borrowed from elements there, and Philippe and I really sort of, beyond, we wanted to create, really kind of fun visual ins and outs of scenes. We had some like hero scenes that have a lot of style with like the Goose Castle on and stuff. But in filming the comedy scenes, I was like, we need to really strip down, make the cover, make like the coverage minimal so that the actors have a ton of room to play, so that we can get as many takes as we can. Because in any indie movie, you don't have that many days to shoot these movies. So it's like, all right, we need to make sure the actors have reps. So that was sort of the style that we laid down. And really the unsung hero I look at, because it's just not something that I immediately think of, was our costume designer, Tora F. Because in my mind, I went to college in the 90s, so like everything when I was like picturing the movie was in that sort of lens, right? And I was like, you know, it was like everybody was wearing American Eagle and cargo shorts were, you know, as far as the eye could see. And Tora was like, no, we need to make this much more colorful. And the first time she showed me everyone's costumes, I was like, I don't know about this. And then you see it against the backdrop of the campus and the way that all of her costumes popped. And I was like, you are a genius. Like it just, the first day of filming was the scene of Molly and Polly walking on campus, and the way their outfits just popped against that sort of college backdrop, the purple, and then Polly in his cool bluey green outfit. And I was like, oh my God, you're the best. So that was something that, you know, Tora had come up with that really like supplemented the style that Philippe and I came up with, and it was a great collaboration.
Well, and then you have to take a look. You carry that idea of the color and the contrast with the campus itself, because the campus itself, it's very collegiate. It's what you think of when you think of an Animal House, for a prime example. It's the all-American college, and here are the little frat houses, here are the nice brick buildings, very old school, very warm and inviting. But then you get into something like the off-campus apartment that Molly and Polly have. And that is, it's got neon, it's got richness to it, it's got more 21st century designer furnishings in there. And the color is much richer. You saturate that room. And it pops. But that carries through from the costuming that has already been established. And I like that follow through there from the visual visual aspect. It feels
like the ultimate sort of sanctuary, like the ultimate fun sanctuary. It's just like, it's warm, it's inviting. It's like if you were to if Molly was a building, you know, it's like, it's fun, it's functional, and a little bit ridiculous. And that was that like old converted firehouse in the middle of Marietta, Georgia. That was just like, it was crazy. I mean, even all the way down to that secret compartment at the end of the movie, not something that we built. That existed in that house.
Oh my God.
That literally existed in the house.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Wow.
Yeah.
But now you've got some great set pieces, quote unquote action set pieces happening here. Starting, of course, you have the tequila sunrise in the third act party. But when things really start, when Molly's plan to help Elliot, Ty Simpkins' character of Elliot, really starts, is with the Boozecathlon. And this is where not only is it shot really well and the performances are hilarious, but this is where your editor, where Tim Rush, is crucial. That is one of the best sequences I have seen, fun sequences I have seen in a while. Talk to me about the whole design of that. And, okay, did Todd and Kevin actually have all the drinking games laid out in the script?
So no. So actually, the Boozecathlon is a creature of my own design. So there was I think that in the original script they had something very similar. I think it was like a huge like campus football game. I think was like the original. And I was like, and just knowing like where we were budgetarily and stuff like that getting tons of extras, shooting a giant football game and stuff like that. Like I didn't think visually it was ever going to live up to what if this was a giant studio movie we could have done. So I was like, we need to be able to compartmentalize this, make it smaller, but still so exciting. So I took sort of the thematic elements of the football game And then I took the Nerd Olympics from Revenge of the Nerds, and then I just condensed it into like the stupid drinking games that I played in college. King's Cup being that was my personal favorite. So we started with that one. And then we just sort of, everybody got around the table and was like, what did you like to play? And we and so we sort of went and did that. But that was, and then it was sort of my baby. I wrote the first draft, and it was 32 pages. And they were like, are you insane? Kevin and Todd were like, are you nuts? This is going to be a third of the movie now? And I was like, no, I'll cut it down. And so we sort of proceeded to cut it down more and more. But then Tim got a hold of it, and Tim and I go way back. I came up as an editor. I still edit to this day. And Tim and I work on a lot of shows together, and we both do a lot of unscripted shows. And that's really where like unscripted reality editors come into play, because he took that thing that we shot all the interiors of Boozcathlon in one night. It was insane. And he chopped it up, cheated, stole, speed ramped, everything to just make that feel like it was that we shot that over the course of a week. And that one, when I saw that, I was like, oh, this movie's going to play. This is so fun. And then you throw in the fun play-by-play from the sports announcer, and I just think that scene is just too fun. That
voiceover, doing the sports announcing, like this is the Super Bowl, was just hilarious. And then you have the visual effects. You've got the graphics over each segment of the Boozcathlon.
Yeah.
Just absolutely hilarious. Hilarious. Now, you talk about a cast, and you couldn't have pulled off a big all-school football team, but you're still dealing with a ton of people, especially with the Boozcathlon crammed into that apartment.
Yeah, and that was supposed to be, again, like another pivot. That actually, the Boozcathlon was supposed to take place outside in the backyard. The firehouse had this beautiful, like, sort of two-tiered backyard, and my production design team and everything had, like, set up this, just the backyard looked amazing. And then the day before we were supposed to shoot it, my AD came to me and he was like, hey, man, thunderstorms all day tomorrow, so figure it out. I was like, awesome. And so we actually had to shift and do everything inside. And so I really credit that AD department and everyone for being able to like really work with the background and organize them in a way that like I could focus on working with the actors and kind of pivoting the shots to the inside while they're arranging and trying to make, 40 or 50 people feel like 100 people in the background. And I think they did a really nice job with it.
Trust me, watching it faelt like 100 people in the background.
Great. Good. Yay. Thank you, Long Lenses and Crackerjack AD crew.
I'm watching this and, I have a good idea of how big the room is and how much space is taken up for our mat, our table, a table of conflict,
exactly.
And then how many people you can fit around that. And I'm like, I don't believe they fit all these people in. And then for Philip to still have, he and his camera operators have enough room to navigate.
Yeah.
Was that?
I mean,
that
luckily
whole thing.
That room was huge. But yes, you could not be more right. It just gets so tiny when you put cameras, dollies,
lights,
actors, and background in there. It gets very small very quickly. But we shot the whole thing to camera, and Philippe he's a genius when it comes to working with two cameras at once. And because they pre-lit the whole place, we weren't actually dealing with moving tons of lights around within the set because they were all like already up, kind of mounted in the ceiling. They were coming through the windows. And then these cameras they're so much more sensitive. You can use a lot more practical lights and stuff like that. And so in that regard, you really were just moving dolly tracks and background around. That was sort of the biggest obstacle, but you weren't moving tons of like silks and lights and all these sort of things around. So that was really nice.
And of course, the main focus of the main lighting was over the table and the combatants anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if you're gonna hang a light, a spot, or something anywhere, that's where it's gonna be.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So and let everything else kind of just fade off into the periphery. But I just love how that entire sequence was shot, cut, and the energy of it is amazing, Andy.
I'm
really
so glad
amazing.
It was like was just something in my head. I was like, oh, we got to pull this off, and I'm so glad, because it's such a catapult for which actually is like my favorite scene, which is Elliot and which is just so intimate. It's just two people, Elliot and Lindsay, the first time they kiss, and like you know, you talk about like things like never been kissed and stuff. I'm a softie.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, to have something with that much energy segue into like what I think is really the sweetest scene in the whole movie, it needed to have that energy.
It is so adorable, so adorable. But now, I want to talk to you more about the editing process of this. Comedy is very tough to cut anyway.
Yeah.
Now, you, with your extensive editing background, and I do mean extensive editing background, you know, as you're shooting, as you're directing, does your editing eye come into play to help minimize the amount of coverage you need, things like that? Because all of that then plays into you sitting down with Tim to cut the film.
Yeah, you're 100% spot on. That's where I feel so blessed that I came up as an editor, because it allows for a level of relaxation on set. An indie movie is always a level of controlled chaos, and we were running into a lot of external problems in Atlanta because it was kind of tail end of COVID. Everything was opening back up, and there were like 84 movies and shows going on in Atlanta at the time. It was just busting at the seams. And for that, we were having, on our budget level, having a really hard time securing locations, or we would lose a location because somebody came in and offered more or something like that. And that's where the editing comes in. And also that sort of shorthand with both Tim and Philippe, where we keep a really relaxed set, because I can go, okay, we can lose this and this. I mean, for instance, like all of the restaurant scenes at the beginning of the movie, when we first meet Trina, Poles, and then later when Poles and Stu are at the restaurant, and then Jamie and Molly are at the restaurant. That wasn't a day. That was a half day of shooting. And it was like, okay, how do we make this feel like it's not like we're not shooting in the exact same corner? How much can I shoot? How do we time this out and stuff like that? And we shot that, like, we had to be out of there before they opened at like 2:00. And it was just, it was crazy. But that's really exactly what, like you're saying, is like, you're like, okay, what do we need? What do we don't need? We always say, what are our snacks and what are our meals?
That's about what it comes down to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I lived with Tim down there. Tim flew out. And so I would come home at night, and at the condo we were staying at, and I was able to like see everything that we had done. I'm like, okay, well, if we're at this set tomorrow, we can steal this insert and stuff like that. That'll help us. That'll help us bridge this, and that was invaluable as well. It's crazy how quickly things go, now that we're shooting digitally and stuff like that. I mean, now there's even technology where they call it like camera to cloud, where the camera is hooked up online to the edit system.
Yep.
So as the movie's being shot, those clips immediately show up on my editor's computer, and that is just bonkers.
And I mean, that's perfect for low budget, no budget, micro budget indie films. It's perfect. That saves a lot of money that can be put elsewhere in a production. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah.
Was it challenging to find the comedic beats in this film?
It was in different places, and the thing is like, we just cast so well. Like, our casting director Shannon McCaney and Gabrielle Amargar are amazing, and if it was not somebody that I like, Britt, I was like, I want Britt, but like Ty was somebody that Shannon knew, and so she pitched Ty to us, and I was like, I like Ty, but he just did The Whale. Like, why would he go from Aronofsky to Andy Notsky? I'm not the guy that you go from The Whale to, but he liked the script, and he wanted to do something light after coming off something that was so heavy like The Whale. And so we got him. And, that was probably the biggest challenge on the comedic side, was that Ty had never done a comedy before. And so he came in and he could tell, like, right off the bat that, like, and he's the one that has to deal with, he's overcoming this trauma. Mm-hmm. Everything is like happening to him in this movie. And so he was having trouble sort of reconciling, like, what's the tone? Where do I need to be? And I said to him, and this is what clicked for him. I said, Ty, comedy drama is exasperation. It's that moment where everything is going so wrong, you just have to throw your hands up and laugh or you'll just die. And he goes, oh, okay. And then it was just like tick, and he was off to the races. And then sitting with Britt and Nico every day, his evolution as a character of Elliot was almost this evolution of Ty as a comedian. Because you really saw him get the pace and the beats of being a comedic actor. And by the end, he's just hysterical, you know?
Oh, he is. It's just from beginning to end, this is so well done. We have complete storylines for everyone. I like Molly's voiceover at the end to really give us an epilogue to complete everything. Really fabulous. And of course, everybody has to stay through the credits because you got a lot of fun stuff happening there.
We could have done 2 rounds of those.
I'm telling you,
it's incredible.
But because we're almost out of time here, but talk to me about the music. You have such an eclectic blend of music happening here with score and with needle drops. Yeah. What were you looking for from a music standpoint?
I just wanted that. I kind of wanted that whole feeling of like female empowerment, but like in a whimsical way. One of the movies that really sticks out to me that had like an interesting soundtrack of needle drops was The Heat, that Paul Feig directed with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. But he chose these like very, very like sort of hardcore like female rap songs and stuff like that, which worked because it gave the edge to the police, scenes in the movie. And I wanted to do something similar with that, but I wanted the sort of whimsy of college. And so Andrea von Forrester was our music supervisor, and she did she did Ben Affleck movie Air, she did Yellowstone. So she was amazing at finding really cool needle drop tracks. My wife actually picked out, I will say, the I Am Woman song at the very end of the movie. That my wife loved that song, and she was like, you have to put this in your movie somewhere. And I was like, all right, we'll try. And it ended up being the perfect song at the end. But then from the score perspective, I had heard this, we had a lot of like composers get submitted and stuff like that. And Shirley and Gina's song Vogue, which is in the movie in the credits, came up, and I just loved that sort of like synthy, bouncy sort of tone. And so I really liked that, and bringing them on was so cool. They were both just amazing, and brought like a really I'd never heard a score like that on a comedy. I thought it was really cool.
Well, from beginning to end, this is such a fun movie, Andy. And as I said, it's light comedy. This is not rocket science. This is not.
No, definitely not.
And it's not raucous balls to the wall kind of comedy either. There are a lot of raucous moments here, but it's all within the context of the thematics of the film. So just job so well done. I am going to watch it again, and everybody can watch it right now because it came out in theaters on Friday as well as on digital and on demand.
Yep. You can load it up to your heart's desire right now. So I hope people do. I really hope people see it, and I hope they just. I don't know. I hope they get a sense of like either they laugh for 2 hours or they go, you know what? It's not too late to figure out who the heck I am. And I think that's the theme of the movie is it's just never too late to figure out who you are as a person, you know?
Absolutely right. Oh, Andy, this has been so wonderful having you on the show. I hope you'll come back again.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope you'll come back again.
Anytime. No, even if I don't have a movie, even if you're like, it's a slow Wednesday. What are you doing? I'm in.
I'm going to keep that in mind, Andy.
All right.
Oh, Andy,
Perfect.
Thank you. You have a great rest of the day.
You too. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Andy Palmer, the re-education of Molly Singer. It's fun, frothy, got a little bit of raucous humor in there. It's college. Come on. It's got to be there. See it. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And Andy's wonderful. Now we're going to switch gears. We're going to get very, very serious here as TRACY DROZ TRAGOS joins us. Hi, TRACY.
I'm
there
here.
you are. There you are. Oh, my goodness. We're having phone issues over here. Damn AT&T. Welcome, Tracy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you. I would have died if the connection had been lost. We just went from a fun movie about re-education, and now we've got Plan C, where you do a lot of educating in this documentary. Let me tell you.
Yeah, well, I hope I also.
Okay.
I lost you.
Yep, there you are again. You keep going in and out.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We'll do the best we can here. Do you want to try dialing back in, Tracy?
To the 800 number?
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that.
Let's try that and see if we get a better line connection from the phone company. Okay, let's
excellent.
do that.
We'll do this one more time. Okay. Bye.
All right, Tracy's gonna dial back in. Okay, we got her. Are you there?
I'm here.
Much more better.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
All right, so this documentary, Plan C, you don't shy away from hot button topics, do you?
Well, I don't.
Wow. I didn't know what to expect when I watched this documentary, and it is so packed with information on an emotional level, a political level, a practical level. You could have really extended this documentary out even longer.
Yeah, it was hard to know when to put down the camera and stop filming, because so much of the work is ongoing and things are only getting more dire in some parts of the country in banned areas. But I really felt like I wanted to share the story of this heroic group of people with audiences, and also to let folks know that they had options no matter where they live in the United States.
Mm-hmm. And I think that really comes through because basically, for our listeners out there, Plan C, the documentary, is about what is now referred to as Plan C, abortion pills, and how people can get them, where you can get them, where you can't, the importance of online or mobile clinics, and how this whole network really has taken shape in these precarious times of the limitations being imposed on Roe v. Wade. And I know that there are a lot of women out there that need help, want help, and don't know where to go. And they're not even sure what's available. And Plan C will tell you what is available. And I love that we get to meet the women, the doctors, the nurses, the volunteers that are part of this quasi-underground network, following their conscience and their hearts with what they're doing. It really blew me away. One of the things that I appreciate that you did there, you have a lot of women that are speaking that they didn't want their faces shown. A lot of them, they said, the heck with it, show our faces. Because of the violence that we see erupting around the country on the issue of abortion. And just the violence in general, the escalation of it over the past number of years. How did you even start this project?
Well, I started it in 2018 when Kavanaugh was appointed to the Supreme Court. And I made a film a few years before where I'd been embedded in a clinic just over Missouri state lines in Illinois. Mm-hmm. And I saw how hard it was, even before Roe fell, for many folks across the country, especially in rural areas, to access the care that they needed. So when Kavanaugh was appointed, it looked like the writing was on the wall that Roe would fall. And I wanted to understand what were folks doing to prepare for that, what seemed inevitable outcome. And here we are, and I followed folks for 4 years leading up to the Dobbs decision in June of 2022.
Wow. Now, how did you go about finding all of your interview subjects? Granted, you were embedded for your documentary Abortion Stories Women Tell. But, was it difficult to get these women to speak or become involved in this documentary?
Well, I think because I've made that film, there was some built-in trust, but I also wanted to take a different approach with this film in that this was really about these activists and organizers and providers, and it wasn't so much about changing hearts and minds as it was about telling a story about what a grassroots movement did during this very precarious time. I saw it as my almost duty to share, who stood up when folks were trying to, restrict access and take away people's human rights. And I also wanted to quite simply share the fact that this was an option that was still available to people and is still available to people today. But to gain the trust, it was really that simple why. It was saying this was my intention. I wanted audiences to meet them in whatever level they were comfortable, having audiences meet them. And some couldn't take the risk that others could take.
Right.
And it was really at everyone's kind of personal choice, how much they could share about their identity and where they live.
One of the great
things... But
I
wanted folks to meet them just the same.
Well, and meeting everybody here and meeting all of these women, what I really appreciate is that you don't just stick a bunch of talking heads up. We actually get to learn something about these women. Francine is a force of nature. I am convinced of that.
Indeed, she is.
Francine is a force of nature. But then we get other women speaking, and we hear from husbands who are very supportive of their wives' involvement in dispensing Plan C and in this grassroots campaign and movement. And I found that really interesting, and I think it's very empowering to the documentary. And I love the one, it's like, look, I cook dinner, I feed her, I'm a stay-at-home husband, I do the laundry, I make sure she drinks water and she's hydrated. And it's like, okay, how do you not love a guy like that?
No, exactly. He's. I think there was one film festival where he got a standing ovation when they heard that he was in the audience.
And I have to say, the dinner that he made that we see on camera, it looked pretty good.
Yeah. I do remember he fed us also. He was trying to feed the film team all the time.
Oh my God.
Bless his heart. Yeah, people can support this movement, frankly, in all kinds of ways. And some of it is just keeping the people who are doing this work fed and hydrated.
It's just like being on a movie set. Craft services.
Exactly.
Craft services everywhere. You feed us and we will come. Now, as you're accumulating all this footage and politically and legally things are happening so fast while you're filming, at what point did you even get to think about your through line for this documentary?
Well, I think the through line emerged pretty quickly once the leak happened. I think before then, it was still kind of unknown when I would put the camera down, frankly, because things continued to happen. Of course, when SB8 happened in Texas, that was a real glimpse of what it would look like when and if Roe fell. But there was still this like hope among everybody that Roe wouldn't really fall.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't really going to go that far. But once the leak happened in May of 2022, no, it was March of 2022, that was when everyone really understood that this was going to happen. This was a reality we were facing. And the work ramped up and the orders ramped up and the fear for, from callers calling in saying, I need help and I don't know where to go. Can you help me? Ramped up. And then, of course, when Roe fell, it was a reality that clinics closed their doors and sort of, it all came to pass. So at that point, I knew I had to put down the camera and get this out. And so the shape of it just, what was basically everything I'd been able to cover up until this point. I wanted to share it all with audiences.
How invaluable was it working with Meredith Rachel Perry, your editor, on this one in putting this together?
Oh, well, the collaboration in any documentary is huge. I mean, and for me, it's kind of my favorite part of it all. I love working with the collaborators, both in the field, the people who are with me filming behind the camera. But Meredith, the relationship with the editor and particularly with Meredith was huge. Meredith is a mom of 2 young kids. I'm a mom of 2 kids that are older. There was a lot of juggling in our own homes to finish this film. It was independent, remains independent. So we were, a scrappy crew and often working remotely with each other around our other commitments in our lives. But we were able to get together, right before the Sundance deadline for an intense period before we submitted to Sundance, and basically got the film into the shape it is in now, with this intense, no sleep, 2-week period where we were together. And it was invaluable.
How much footage did the 2 of you have to cull through? Because in addition to the footage you have embarking on this since 2018 and speaking with all these different women and getting, ambient shots, protest shots, you've got archival news footage happening here. You've got, news reports coming from Capitol Hill with breaking news as things are happening. All of this you're juggling. So I'm curious, how many hours of footage did you have to cull through to get down to 97 minutes or so?
Yeah, we had over 300 hours of footage.
Oh, my God.
And I think, the challenging part, I long to make a film about like one person over a weekend or something, but I never seem to tackle something so so specific and in a way it would seem so lovely and easy. Maybe that's what I'll do next. But
sure,
we
you
also,
will.
Traveled over 14 states to capture all of this footage. So yeah, it was a bit of a sprawling endeavor, but I thought it was important to see what the landscape was while all these folks were working and how the network was growing and how people were able to ship over state lines and the impact of that in the places that were banned and restricted in receiving, the care from folks in another state. I mean, it was a sprawling enterprise to try to figure out how to cover the story. And, I'm thankful that audiences are able to take away all that we hoped they would take away in the end.
It's, it's an extremely powerful film, but it's so insightful. and educational as to the mechanics of how all of this works. And I think it helps to see them engaging online with actual women calling in or emailing in for assistance with questions. Because that is in lieu of going to their regular healthcare provider, because they can't do that. So the fact that there are alternatives and we get to actually see it in action, I think that's very important. So it's not just some Publishers Clearinghouse mail order thing.
Well, I hope that there would be some trust that audiences would have, even if they couldn't always see the full face of the medical provider on the other end of the line. They could understand that this was a real person. This was a trustworthy person who cared and was doing this as a matter of conscience to do this work. And in fact, the folks that are continuing to do this work, they are all licensed medical providers, and they're shipping FDA approved medication, medication that's safe and effective and approved by the FDA for over 20 years. It's just that in some states where they send this medication, the states are trying to criminalize it. And so, what is maybe safe medically is unsafe from a criminal perspective.
Did you ever, while you were filming, over the course of the 4 years, did you ever feel you were in danger because you were filming this?
I did not. I think that question continues to be asked even with this film's release. And of course, I'm aware that there are bad actors out there who would want to harm, people doing this work, or people that are telling the story of people doing this work. But I haven't felt any direct threat. I mean, for the most part, I was spending time in people's homes, and we were, around the country. They weren't advertising what they were doing. So it was very different from being like in an abortion clinic where there's a bunch of protesters directly outside. I was with people who, were doing this work discreetly and safely and privately, and in part doing it so that they could, in that way, so that they could continue to do the work. So they're not, they don't have a big sign out front saying, I'm practicing telemedicine and I'm shipping abortion medication from this house, because there'd be no point in that.
And I notice you also very discreetly and keenly, we're not seeing any landmarks, any identifiable landmarks in your footage, except for, I think, 1 or 2 moments on a freeway or something that there's a sign, an exit sign. But I really like that fact, so that in and of itself should give some degree of comfort, an additional degree of comfort to the documentary's participants.
Well, I certainly hope this film will not, bring any harm to their work, only amplify and support it. And I did take great pains to make sure that locations were disguised and voices were disguised, and we blurred what needed to be blurred. I mean, we also didn't hide the fact that we were blurring this, because I think that was an important element of the story. Yeah. And that is something that Meredith and I talked a lot about together, Meredith, the editor on Plan C, because we felt like it was almost a character of sorts, the stakes that these people were doing this work in, that we had to, hide their faces and disguise their voices at times. So, we weren't going to hide away from that fact.
And you even have it, one of the title cards in the opening of the documentary. You even reference that. So right away, anybody watching this is going to know going in exactly what they're going to see in that respect. So they don't suddenly go, oh, well, that's blurred out. Oh, well, they disguised the voice. No, you make it very clear that this is a personal choice of these individuals and they still want to participate, but they are concerned for their own safety. So,
and it's a fine line,
yeah,
because we don't want to add to the shame and stigma that abortion access already has. And we didn't want to make this seem like a criminal enterprise, because these are, lovely people who walk their dogs and take their cookies out of the oven and have partners that love them and have children that they're caring for. But, they have to do this work with some amount of secrecy in order to continue to do the work because of the political climate we live in.
Yeah.
And folks who would want to criminalize them.
Yeah. What would you say was the most challenging aspect of making this documentary? Other than the time crunch of all of a sudden in 2022, it's, oh my God, I got to put the camera down. What would you say was the most challenging aspect of making this documentary?
I mean, it's hard to say that there was anything that wasn't a challenge, to be honest. I mean, this was an independent film. And so, not only was I trying to make it, I was trying to fundraise for it or, get it on a traditional streaming network. And everyone was pretty afraid of it, despite the fact that it felt like a timely film. And for me, it was the most journalistic endeavor that I've ever taken on. But there were lots of sort of dark nights of the soul where I would say, how can I keep going? How can I put another plane ticket on my credit card and, ramp up again? But I was strengthened and inspired and encouraged by the people in the movement, by the people that were also doing this work in pretty, hard circumstances, certainly much harder than mine. And so whenever I felt kind of like, oh, this is too hard, I would recommit in following their work and knowing how important it was. So it really became, about elevating them, and, I should just deal with whatever, filmmaking obstacles I had. And let the chips fall where they may.
Well, now, having said that, what do you think is the biggest thing that you learned as a filmmaker in making Plan C that you can take forward into your future projects now?
Well, that's a very, very good question. I mean, one can't do it alone. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons, is as much as this film is about a network, this film took a network of individuals to see it through. And you don't have to wait for a big streamer to give you permission and to say, yes, I will greenlight you. I mean, it is, despite it being a hard time for creators and particularly independent filmmakers right now, there are still ways to get our films made. It's just very, very hard to do alone. So, I am grateful for the collaborators. I'm grateful for the EPs that came on board and donated, to our fiscal sponsors so that we would have the means for that, last bunch of shooting or to finally finish the film when we got an invitation to Sundance. There would have been no way for me to ultimately finish the film without their support and collaboration. And it's very similar to the way the network of these providers formed. They needed each other. There was strength in numbers.
Wow. Now, one thing I'm curious, were you doing your own research and accumulating all, archival news footage and all? Or did you at least have a researcher who was doing that for you?
Well, we were kind of all doing it together. There was, Meredith Perry, who is the editor, and she did a lot of research. I did some research. Sometimes people would actually send us materials. We had an assistant editor who ended up doing a lot more work and was an associate producer on the project, Beth Kearsley. She found material. Molly Bourne, who is a filmmaker in the South, she ended up finding some materials from lawmakers and state houses that, was sort of very, very hard material to find that wasn't just up on the internet. Mm-hmm. So it was it came from a lot of different sources.
Wow. I'm just glad you didn't have to do all of that yourself.
No, exactly. Filmmaking is very rarely a one-woman show.
Even when it's a documentary, especially when it's a documentary.
Yes.
With a subject matter such as this. Oh, so now how excited are you? The film is opening 20 markets. 20 markets on October 6th. That's this Friday.
Well, that is this Friday. I'm very excited. I'm also must admit that there are certainly nerves, and we're still an independent endeavor. As much as we have the wonderful good fortune that there are folks who believe in this film and believe in the message in the film, who have booked the theater. We're an indie outfit trying to get the word out. So it's, person to person. And I so much appreciate you having me on to help spread the word about it, because, it's not like there's a giant studio that's doing all those ads that people see.
But,
so, we're hoping that folks will show up and, people will actually see it in those 20 theaters.
Well, and the thing is, for a film like this, a documentary like this, typically you might be lucky to get a week in New York or LA or just one or two theaters, but you've got 20 markets for this documentary. That in itself is an achievement. In today's theatrical distribution, this is difficult. So that's an achievement. But then for anybody that can't get to theaters, come November 14th, the film's going to be available on demand.
Exactly. I mean, we are hopeful that folks will come to theaters, because there is a certain coming together with this film and what's possible with kind of people power. So we hope that, folks might grab their friend and, come and see it as a group. And talk about it afterwards, and maybe even do some organizing afterwards. Reach out to us. We have a lot of resources on our website about how to organize and do movement building around the country. And we've got stuff for college students particularly. I'm excited to reach out to college communities particularly, so that they know about the film and can, do work with the film. To know their rights and continue to fight for their rights.
What's the best website people can go to for information on Plan C?
PlanCmovie.com.
Oh,
We've got all the screening information and all those materials there.
That's just too easy, Tracy. That is way too easy. I got to tell you, PlanCmovie.com. Tracy, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today to talk about Plan C. It is an extremely worthwhile documentary. And the fact that you managed to pull this off and having to basically grind to a halt and start up a different process in the filmmaking process, thanks to politics, it's a Herculean effort on your part. Let me tell you.
Well, thank you. There's a new village that's coming together to help release it. So I'm grateful for our indie distributor, Level 33, who booked it in all these theaters. They've been amazing.
Andreas is phenomenal. Level 33 is an incredible distributor, and actually I can tell you that he doesn't take films if he doesn't believe in them. I know how picky he is. So,
well, it makes a real difference. They're
does.
doing an amazing, amazing job. So I'm grateful to them.
Well, fingers crossed for opening weekend. Everyone can go see Plan C. Tracy, thank you so much. And I hope you'll come back on the show again with your next project.
Me too. Me too.
Well,
thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Tracy Droz Tragos, director of Plan C. It is in theaters this Friday. And Andy Palmer, Re-Education of Molly Singer. It is in theaters right now. Light, bright, fun, and fantastic. So, that is all the time we have today. Pam's happy now because I was 8 minutes short on last week's show. So, now I'm 8 minutes over this week, so it balances out. So, until next week we have more live guests for you. And be on the lookout because Frank Meyer is going to be back with us in a couple of weeks talking about his new film on hip-hop. So, until next week, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.